everybody, Backyard Bullion here. Welcome to this week's Ponderous Wednesday. I hope you're all having a fantastic week wherever you may be in this big wide world. Now, for those of you who are new to my channel or don't know, Ponderous Wednesdays are all about taking a thought-provoking and interesting topic and having a good old ramble about them here on YouTube to share some opinions down in the comment section and get a good old discussion going. Last week we talked about pensions, and this week we're going to do kind of a bit of an extension follow-up to that. We're going to talk about some of the reasons why you might want to consider not buying silver and gold for your pension. Last week it was all about why I stack gold and silver for my pension. I'm a firm believer in those assets being quite good as a pensionable stack or as a pensionable asset. But I also wanted to present today some of the reasons why I don't go full hog into gold and silver, why it only forms a very small part of that kind of pension plan, and why some of the negatives about investing in gold and silver for the future and for your pension as well. I think it's really important to give both sides of the argument. Do remember though that I am not a financial planner, nor am I a pensions advisor. I am just a guy who likes to talk about shiny things here on YouTube. So if you're going to go and make any financial decisions, they need to be yours and yours alone, and I'd highly recommend you go and do a lot more research than just watching my videos. Now, as I talk today, I'm going to be playing with this absolutely awesome 49-piece Tetris set, which has been commissioned by Eric over in the USA. Thank you so much, Eric, for commissioning this. It's been an absolute pleasure to make, and more so a pleasure to enjoy for the short time that I have it here in my possession before I pack it up and ship it off to you today. Made this amazing frame. My dad made this amazing frame as well for it to sit in, so really is fantastic. So I'm going to do a bit of a flipperoo on this, and then we will play with the Tetris set as I talk about pensions and why you shouldn't invest in silver for your pensions. It's always interesting that I've done a few videos where I've talked about some of the negatives of investing in silver, and they've often been some of my most watched videos here on YouTube, so it would be intriguing to see if all of you are very sort of vocal about this, and I would encourage you all to share your opinions and thoughts down in the comment section. This is of course why I make these videos on Ponderous Wednesday, so please do comment down below. Bear in mind though, I'm presenting kind of, almost a devil's advocate look and view about investing in silver generally. It's not, of course, going to be for everybody, so please be respectful of mine and other people's views as well. So, investing in gold and silver, why is that necessarily a bad idea for your pension? Well, I think it needs to be put into context. I don't generally think that investing in gold and silver is a bad idea. I certainly don't think it's a bad idea when you think about investing for 30 years, 40 years time for your pension. If you're a young person looking to save money for the future, that's just a good thing all round. What I mean by what it's not necessarily the best idea is relative to the other options that are out there when you're looking to invest generally for your pension. So over here in the UK, the state pension age is, I think for somebody of my generation, it's going to be around 68, 69, which is obviously, very, very old, and, you don't necessarily be wanting to work all the way till that age. I know I certainly don't want to be working, a kind of full-time desk job, or even if I was a manual sort of labour style job, I would not want to be working until I'm well into my 60s and 70s. But for a lot of people, unfortunately, that is not an option. So, state pension age is 67, 68, 69, depending on how old you are, and it's not great. Let's be honest, you don't get, a large pot of money out of it. So I firmly believe that investing in a private pension scheme, private savings for the future, is really, really important. And this is even assuming that the state pension here in the UK will even exist in 30 years time. There's a lot of arguments to suggest that it won't be, because we're just in an ever aging population with more and more people not working, or at least not earning as much, and it is just going to be a very interesting time, in sort of 20-30 years time. It is probably one of the big sort of social crises which is just waiting to happen. But all that doom and gloom aside, there are ways, of course, that you can mitigate that, and that is, of course, by doing private savings, and that's what I do. I am a self-employed person. I run, my own sort of business consultancy alongside of all of Backyard Bullion and, of course, my YouTube channel, and all of that is self-employed work. And, of course, I don't get an employer's pension. I don't get a sort of an HS pension or a teacher's final salary pension or anything like that at all. I have to save money, basically. And the best and most efficient way of doing that is, of course, by putting money into a private pension pot rather than gold or silver. Now, the reason for that is because obviously the government likes it when people save money into pension pots, because it means that they've got potentially less of a social burden on them as a government when you get to the sort of retirement stage of your life. So they give you tax relief. They give you full tax relief on your earnings, which is absolutely fantastic. So certainly if you're a higher rate taxpayer, if you're paying 40% tax by putting that money into a pension pot, you get all of that back put into your pension, which is pretty amazing, really. And of course that means that the pension pot is bigger. It can potentially earn more through investing in stocks and shares or whatever it is, depending on your risk kind of level that you want to invest in. There's so many different options out there, but you can get a larger proportion of growth through doing something like that. Having that kind of uplift from the government, so to speak, is fantastic. And it's a really tax efficient way even when you get to that retirement age, because you are able to take a 25% lump sum tax free. So of course you're saving a lot of tax when you get that lump sum, and a lot of people, my parents included, use that to pay off the mortgage, for example. If you're living mortgage free in your retirement, that is an incredibly useful and sort of financially sound thing to do. And of course it takes off so many different burdens in life, especially when you're not working, and you can then just work out what you need to live on. And if you've been a higher rate taxpayer all your life and you've got a very nice sized pension pot, you can then decide what you want to do. If you wanted to take a large part of that out, you can go on a world tour or something, then you can. Or if you are kind of similar mindset to myself and you just want to have a little bit of a relaxing retirement, you don't need a lot of money, you just take out what you need to pay 20%, for example, then relative speaking to your 40% tax that you've been paying through your salary, you're saving 20%, which is a huge boon. Now, you're not going to be able to get that same tax relief from buying silver and gold. Of course, there are different benefits to buying silver and gold and investing in silver and gold, and I've talked about those in last week's video, so I'm not going to really rehash all of those today. But of course, you're not going to get that kind of same uplift, which is so good and important, and I think that's something that a lot of people overlook sometimes. Another reason that you might not want to invest in gold and silver is all the eggs in one basket kind of example. Now that only really applies if your whole pension strategy relies on gold and silver. Now I would never recommend anybody to sort of look at doing that. It's too risky in my opinion. I think there's so many different factors at play. Silver and gold generally are volatile metals. If your mentality is that silver and gold will shoot the moon, so to speak, one day, and that's when you'll get your whole kind of profit out of it, in my opinion, it's just never going to happen. I really don't think that silver and gold will kind of shoot the moon and make people millionaires. It's just not why I invest in gold and silver. It's not why a large proportion of you invest in gold and silver. If you firmly believe that, I'm not having a go at you. I'm not saying that you're completely wrong. You may well be right, and I might well be proved to be wrong. But I personally don't think it's going to happen, and that's why I don't go kind of full hog into investing in gold and silver. And I know a lot of you do, and that's absolutely fine. And of course, it's all down to each person's individual financial circumstances and what their kind of risk mentality is all about. Of course, it's very different as well for us over in the UK to the USA. In the UK, we pay like 15-20% over spot for our silver, which is obviously a huge premium. So if you're looking at short-term liquidity, silver's not very liquid compared with gold, so we go a lot heavier into gold if you're kind of a longer-term pension style stacker. So that's definitely something to factor in. But ultimately it's going to be down to each individual circumstance. I personally don't think that silver's going to shoot the moon, so it's not part of my kind of overall plan for investing in silver. Certainly it doesn't form the kind of mentality of my thinking. It's very much about that wealth preservation. And on the wealth preservation side of things, really another important diversification tool, which is equally as good, if not arguably better, is investing in property. You can see here I've run out of things to do. I've completed my Tetris set. Let's play with that again, because it was very satisfying. But for example, liquidity, sorry, not liquidity, we're talking about wealth preservation. So wealth preservation of property is equally as good to gold and silver. I remember reading an article about the two different types of investments. I have to excuse the jet plane flying overhead. don't get very many of them, but when we do, there's one or two that's quite loud. So property is equally as good as gold and silver for investing, in that sort of longer term pension style pot, I suppose you could call it. And of course, the other benefits to investing in property is that you can live in your property. You can't live in a giant stack of gold and silver. And I know a lot of you out there will be a bit facetious and say you could build a house out of silver. Of course you can. Well, yes you could, but like Hansel and Gretel building or finding a house made out of gingerbread man, imagine coming across a house made out of silver blocks. That would be a pretty big target for people to want to investigate and have a look at and see what they can do with it, for sure. So I'm not sure that's necessarily a practical counter argument. That said, of course, it's all about what's right for you. A lot of people think property is the right way for them to go, and I would agree. I would say buying property is probably more beneficial in the long term than buying a large proportion of gold and silver, which in my opinion should form a larger proportion of that kind of pension long-term planning. If you can and you are fortunate enough to be on the property ladder and looking to invest in property for that kind of longer term strategy, whether it's something that you're getting a buy to let and you're then you're obviously renting it out so that it pays for itself by the time you get to retirement, you'll have a kind of lump sum nest egg or a completely paid off asset which will yield you a certain amount of rental income, for example. All of those types of things are very, very important to consider. And of course, when you're talking about yield, that's another reason to think about gold and silver as not being the best option for you out there. Gold and silver don't yield you anything along the way. So stocks and shares, we haven't even talked about those. You see, this is the problem with talking about pensions. Last week I did this. I had so many different ideas which I wanted to discuss and talk about, and I didn't even barely scratch the surface. But stocks and shares are equally as an important asset for lots of people out there, and they will be investing in stocks and shares very much for that long-term kind of future. It's something which yields you dividends along the way, which is of course something that gold and silver does not do, and that's for some people really important. As much as we hate fiat currencies, and I hear a lot of people talking about why they invest in gold and silver because of their lack of faith in fiat currencies and the inevitable kind of currency collapse which is out there. Love or hate it, we live in the world of fiat currency. The world revolves around money, and unfortunately for a lot of people, money is tight. Money is what you need to live off, and if you put all of those assets into gold and silver which don't yield you anything over time, you're relying on a certain price point for the future, it might not ever come. And that's something that a lot of people need to think about, and that's one of the biggest pitfalls that people fall into investing in gold and silver, and why they end up perhaps losing money because they're forced to sell their assets when the time is not right for them. And it is just a shame to see that, and it's a shame for people to be disillusioned and losing money, because I really do think gold and silver has a great place in any kind of long-term pension planning situation. So of course diversity is the key message that I'm trying to put out here for everybody, and to think about as well. I personally am diversified in a number of different pension style savings sort of scenarios, stocks and shares, property. The whole question of property, again, it's about debt-free lifestyles. Is being debt-free before you buy gold and silver a necessity? And it was an interesting question which we raised over on the Silver Forum, and a lot of people had lots of differing opinions. Of course, at the moment, interest rates are incredibly low, so the cost of borrowing to obviously buy that property is incredibly low. But of course, interest rates might go up, and that's a topic for another time entirely, because with interest rates going up, potentially gold and silver prices will go down, as we've seen time and time again happen in history. So, lots to factor in over time. Of course, it depends on your strategy for when you want to retire as well. All of these types of investments that I've mentioned, property included, stocks and shares, everything, they all have a very kind of time-dependent window of when they're going to be best for people to liquidate and use for the pension. Property very much has that same. We see dips and climbs in the market. Stocks and shares, obviously, there are dips and climbs as well. And of course, silver and gold, huge swings up and down in those markets that come across time. So it is all about kind of diversification. I think that's the key thing. It's important, I think, for everybody to understand and research as much as possible when they're going to their pensions. It's such a key area for people's futures, and it's certainly one which I know that a lot of people that I have met in my lifetime, in my professional lifetime as well, regret quite a lot not thinking about sooner. But anyway, that's my thoughts on it. Overall, the message here is I think definitely there is a place for gold and silver in any rightful stack. I don't know quite what that number will be for every single person out there. A lot of people put the figure of 10% of your kind of pot in gold and silver. I would tend to agree. I think that's a pretty good number to aim to achieve for. One thing which I haven't touched on today, though, for those of you who've been watching for this last 16 minutes of me ramble on, is about whether or not you front load that kind of gold and silver investment. You know, with property, when you buy a house, you're kind of almost front loading that investment. Certainly if you've got enough sort of cash to look to buy it, you're front loading that cash into the property. If you've got a mortgage in a certain way, you are front loading that as well, because you're agreeing on a fixed price, you're borrowing a certain amount of money, and you're paying that certain amount of money out over time. So, you know, it's a really interesting premise, and I think that's certainly something that we'll be talking about in a future Ponderous Wednesday. Now, I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions on this. By the way, if you are interested in a Tetris set and you're interested in beating Eric's record of 49, I'm afraid somebody else has already beat you to it. There's a 50-piece Tetris set coming out, which I'll be sharing in a video probably similar to this at some point in the future. And for those of you who are looking at this going, gosh, that looked so much fun and looked easy to put together, trust me, it's not that easy. I cheated a little bit. I had a cheat sheet of a photograph of the Tetris set so that I could put it together on camera, because it was not a very easy thing to do. The first couple of takes of this video, I ended up messing it up and not having everything in the right place. Anyway, I've rambled on for long enough. If you enjoyed today's video, if you enjoyed this topic, I think it's a really interesting topic, please put that thumbs up on this video and share it around on your social media. Also, if you would like to comment with your opinions on this topic, I would love to hear them. Please comment down below respectfully of mine and other people's views, even if you don't share those views. That's what this whole video is about. I love reading the comments. I'll try and get back to all of your comments where possible. But of course, if you're just going to be rude and obtuse, then I probably will ignore it or just be obtuse back to you. If you like this kind of content, please subscribe. I'm doing a kind of Ponderous Wednesday. It seems to be my new thing at the moment. So a Ponderous Wednesday every Wednesday, of course. Hit the subscribe button to get more of these types of videos, and make sure you hit the alarm bell, and then you'll get a notification when that video goes live. Otherwise, that is all I have to say. I hope you all have a fantastic week. Thank you so much for watching, and please make sure that you like, share, comment, and subscribe for more.